You're set.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. As Chloe said, my name is Dora Frietze-Armenta, and I'm an urban planner at Pacoima Beautiful. We're an environmental justice organization in the San Fernando Valley, and we predominantly do work in Pacoima and Sun Valley. So I wanted to start off by sharing some background about myself I know we have a kind of varied audience. So I just wanted to help you understand how I got where I am now. So if I can figure out Canva, right. So I grew up in the Central Valley in a small and hardworking town called Porterville. It's actually at the entrance of the Sequoia National Forest, and it's surrounded by miles and miles of agriculture, orange trees as far as the eye can see, and so many other crops. This is where California and the rest of the country actually gets most of its produce, and it's picked predominantly by immigrant workers. I grew up as the fifth child of 9, and my parents worked hot summers out in the fields and always emphasized education. So when I graduated high school, my older sister and I moved to Orange County and went to Cal State Fullerton. While I was there, I majored in sociology, and I later double majored in Chicano studies. The reason for that was because I really like the blend of these two fields. It really helped me understand these macro issues in society with a particular focus on the contributions of Chicano leaders and the communities that came before me. It also helped me understand where I came from Porterville, why my neighborhood looked the way it did, and why kind of things worked the way they did. It gave me a lot of answers to some questions that I had and didn't know the answer to. After I graduated, I worked at various nonprofits focused on higher education for middle school and high school students. And the main focus with that was, we wanted to get more Black and brown and underrepresented youth into college to get a 4-year university degree. But after a few years of doing that, I decided to change course. I had always been interested in environmentalism, and I was trying to figure out how to get into that field. So during a 2-year stint living in New York, I worked as a community outreach coordinator at an organization called New Yorkers for Parks. So I had done a lot of work at a volunteer and service center while at Cal State Fullerton, and I did a lot of work around environmental justice, social justice, and a few other different causes. And so the transition into a role like this at New Yorkers for Parks was very, very quite natural. So this was a change in my career that really energized me and just made me super excited about my work. So during my time there, I coordinated a project called the Daffodil Project. It's a program that started after 9/11, and eventually it turned into a beautification effort. I had the chance to talk to residents and business associations, neighborhood councils, nonprofit organizations, volunteer groups, a really diverse group of stakeholders that were interested in improving their neighborhoods. Through the Daffodil Project, people planted these bulbs, these flower bulbs in pocket parks, regional parks, parkways, street tree pits, really to improve their neighborhoods. We worked with several high schools and elementary schools to plant and beautify their neighborhood and beautify their grounds. And ultimately, working with people throughout all 5 boroughs, I really understood how important public space was and how critical it was for more resources, more funding to be allocated to these kind of shared amenities. Parks were a place for community, community building, for exercise, for family, as we see now, for protests, to rally, to gather, to entertain. And I became really interested in improving neighborhoods that looked to improve people's quality of life, especially in communities that look like my own, which was, I grew up in a predominantly Latino poor community. And so I really wanted to give back in a way that that, you know, made sense to me. And so my experience volunteering, my experience coming from Porterville, from the Central Valley, and just my interest and passion for environmentalism really kind of led me into this field. And having this role at New Yorkers for Parks kind of really made me start thinking about graduate school. So I soon moved back to California, and I decided to pursue my graduate degree in Masters of Urban and Regional Planning. And as part of our graduation requirement, I completed a client project with a small group of my cohort, and the client was none other than Pacoima Beautiful. Oh. So the project there was focused on the Transformative Climate Communities grant that Pacoima Beautiful had applied to. It was a grant funded by cap and trade dollars that fueled money back into the communities that experienced heavy pollution. So as part of that grant application, Pacoima Beautiful created an anti-displacement plan. The reason for that was because whenever infrastructure comes into a new neighborhood, there is a high likelihood that gentrification will follow. And so as part of this grant, Pacoima Beautiful created an anti-displacement plan that included 5 policies meant to mitigate the gentrification by supporting local businesses, providing resources to residents and tenants, and really helping them, like getting them involved in the entire process. So as part of that project, my group focused on studying ADUs, or accessory dwelling units, or as many people know them, granny flats, which are basically the homes behind the homes. And we knew that there were a lot of renters in Pacoima that were going to be the most vulnerable to potential rent increases. And because we knew that there were so many ADUs in Pacoima, and also that some that were not permitted, we wanted to make sure that we wanted to create an anonymous data set where we were able to understand the conditions of ADUs, as well as more about the tenants themselves. And so while doing this work, I came to really appreciate what PB does in the community. I love that they amplified the voices of community members, that they provided resources for residents, and you know that they did everything they could to improve the living conditions in the area. This is the group that we spent quite a few weeks out in Pacoima doing door-to-door knocking, asking people, you know, what their ADUs kind of look like, just so that we had an understanding of how we can improve those things for them, and how we can legalize some of these ADUs so that tenants wouldn't have to move out, or that these ADUs wouldn't have to be destroyed because they were unpermitted. So I was super excited that once I graduated, Pacoima Beautiful was able to hire me as a full-time planner there. And so let me share a little bit of background about Pacoima, or PB. So Pacoima Beautiful has been in existence for about 25 years. The organization started when a group of women noticed the extreme trash problem in the area and wanted to do something about it. So it started as a cleaning group, but it's eventually kind of become an environmental justice group. If you all don't know the area that I'm talking about, Pacoima is actually highly impacted by various polluting industries, from a gas plant to auto dismantlers to landfills. It's also an area that gets high diesel truck traffic, and it's surrounded by 4 freeways. So the pollution there is very, very high. And as far as California, it's one of the most polluted areas in California, unfortunately. So Pacoima Beautiful recognized, you know, that it was imperative for us to do something for community members. We saw the enthusiasm there. We saw that people wanted to make a change and a difference. They just didn't exactly know how. So as an organization, we've been really great in tackling so many issues around pollution and pushing for environmental justice. As an organization, we recognize that these are really just quite, injustices for Black and Brown communities. It's, hardworking people that live there that don't deserve to be disrespected and overlooked when dirty industries come and move into these neighborhoods, which cause a lot of health issues. There's a lot of kids there that have grown up there their entire lives that suffer from asthma, people that have just have unexplained headaches for a lot of reasons, and some of that we can attribute to the pollution that happens in this area. So Pacoima really focuses on, or aims to focus on, green and alternative solutions for the community, as well as uplifting community members by providing workforce opportunities, providing educational workshops, leadership roles, and making sure that residents and community members are really involved in changing in their communities. Did I stop talking there at some point? Okay. Well, going back, there's a lot of different issues that Pacoima Beautiful kind of rallies around. This top photo that you see was our latest rally to stop the gas leak at the LADWP gas plant. So as far as we know, there's been a gas leak for the last year at this gas plant, which has in an area that's already polluted, it only adds to that. And so here you see us and community members just kind of rallying around this, like have LADWP take responsibility for that, and asking them to meet with the community to let us know why wasn't anybody notified. The picture on the bottom you see is we also have cleanups. We try to do a kind of a diverse kind of efforts, and Pacoima Beautiful is just really quite amazing in making sure that we assist the needs of the residents and of the neighborhood there in whatever form that looks like. So if it's a rally or if it's just a cleanup, we're out there doing that. So the program that I'm working on is called the Transformative Climate Communities Grant Program, and it's the grant that I had spoken about before. It is part of the Strategic Growth Council, where they use cap and trade dollars to fund back into communities that experience high pollution. And we were awarded that grant back in late 2018, a $23 million grant. And through that, our group, the Green Together Collaborative, it's made up of 9 organizations that are focused on completing 6 projects in Pacoima and Sun Valley, predominantly focused on projects that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the area. So these projects include working with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps to plant 2,000 trees within Pacoima and Sun Valley. So those 2,000 trees are going to be within our project area, in residential neighborhoods, and also in business corridors. And we're hoping to plant those 2,000 trees within a span of 5 years. So 5 years from now, we hope to have 2,000 trees in the ground, which is quite a lot of work, but we're really excited. Pacoima is also an area that is just extremely hot during the summers. This past summer, we experienced a few heat waves, and what better way to mitigate that and mitigate the causes of the impacts of heat by putting trees and making sure that our tree canopy and the shade is just much bigger in neighborhoods. The other thing that we're going to be doing is we are going to be working with the Trust for Public Land to renovate a local park, the David Gonzalez Park. And so part of what we're doing is we're including native vegetation, trees, walking paths, a kind of a garden. And all of this, we hope to bring in community members and have them help us out with the design of the project. One of the things that we really, really appreciate and that we emphasize is having residents be a part of the design and be part of the conversation. We firmly believe that because they live there, they are stakeholders and their voice needs to be included in the planning and in the design of these things. The other thing that we're doing is we're working with an organization called Grid Alternatives to install 175 solar panels on single family homes. And so again, we're trying to move away from polluting industries, and electricity it tends to be one of the industries that adds to greenhouse gas emissions. And so by having residents change from, from typical kind of traditional electricity to solar panels, this will help reduce the greenhouse gases, specifically in this area. The other 3 projects that we're working on is we're going to be having electric buses and a fleet of electric buses being routed through Pacoima and through the project area. And we're also going to be having pedestrian improvements and EV charging stations. We have another project that focuses on having people that are going to buy new cars think about an electric car. And so having these mobility hubs and these EV charging stations will really actually support people as they're trying to move away from a gas dependent car. As part of this work, my job is to make sure that, the community gets the benefits from these projects. It means that they have the opportunity to have a tree planted on their street that'll create shade and that'll make their neighborhoods cooler during the summer. It means that they'll get to participate in the transformation of these parks and neighborhoods by providing feedback during the design process. And all of this is really, really important work for me. There's so many times during urban planning that these communities are left out of planning, or that industries are kind of put into these neighborhoods without the thought of how this pollution will affect communities nearby. And it's my job to make sure that they're intrinsically part of the process. So I don't know if I'm ending quite soon, but I'd like to encourage you all to follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter. We always have really, really great things going on. We also have internships during the summer, volunteer opportunities, and we'd love for all of you to get involved with us at some point. As I had mentioned, we recently had a rally around the gas leak in Sun Valley, and we're going to be doing more, having a conversation with LEDWP in October. And the more support we have for that, the greater that would be. So yeah, we'd love to have you get just kind of plugged in with what the work that we do and join our local efforts. We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So if you want to follow us, we need to make sure that we plan a city and we plan it equitably with everyone in mind. And so having more people, more voices at the table is really important for the work that we do. So I know that was quite a lot. So if anybody has any questions, maybe I can go back and talk about some of these things.
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Dora. I follow Pacoima Beautiful on Instagram. Highly recommend. I will definitely share those resources. Students, please look out for an email from your professors. But yeah, I did want to open this time up for questions. Please feel free to submit something to the chat and we can go ahead and read it off. Can give people kind of maybe a second. Oh, thank you, Jamal. So with the onset of COVID-19, Dora, I want to ask, we talked about this a little bit before, but how is your work kind of changed? What's the community engagement process like now that things are not in person the way I expect you'd kind of prefer a lot of this work to be?
I think that's a great question. And I think that's something that we are consistently having to invent and reinvent. So one of the projects that I'm also working on is called the Pacoima Wash. So it's an area along a kind of river or little tributary in Pacoima that we want to transform into a bike path or pedestrian path. And we were supposed to have these in-person meetings with the community, and obviously we can't do that. So we've had to get really, really just kind of smart about it and innovative about it. So the first thing that we did is we reached out to our regular kind of residential base, our members, and we just made phone calls. And we had a survey that we wanted people to fill out, but because not everybody is comfortable filling out a survey on their phone or on the computer, and some of them don't have access to it, we basically just called people. We also sent out a flyer to tons of people that live around that particular area with a QR code where they can scan it and then take the survey online. It'll take them directly to that page, but they can also reach out to us at any point if they wanted to take the survey and do it over the phone. We've also held something like this, town halls to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing there. Interestingly enough, a lot of our members and a lot of residents have a Facebook. So it's really easy for people to kind of tune in on Facebook Live or something like that. So we've also gone that route. We've also done mass texting. And that kind of works out pretty well, especially if people don't have access to internet or don't have a computer. So we've also done that. But like I said, we're just kind of constantly trying to figure out a way to reach the most amount of people. And to be honest, I think that even once we can meet in groups again, I think we'll implement some of the things that we've done in these last few months, because it does help us reach a larger audience.
Awesome. So I'm also wondering right now, what are kind of the most impactful ways that students or kind of anyone in general can sort of get involved in work with Pacoima Beautiful or like environmental justice work in general, especially maybe from home at this point?
I think I think a lot of that stuff is going to come online. We've done quite a few, like with the rally with LEDWP, we had a petition where people can fill out that petition. We made phone calls during a city council meeting to let them know that this is happening and that they kind of need to respond to it. We sent out emails. So there's a variety of ways of getting involved, but I feel like sometimes that can be challenging if you don't know exactly how to what the steps are to get there, right? So if you have a local organization in your neighborhood or in the area you live in that does environmental work, housing work, park advocacy work, there's a variety of things that have to do with urban planning that you can get involved with, and different organizations that you can get involved with. But I would definitely use them as a way to kind of introduce yourself to some of the work that's going on around LA, but also just to keep your ear to the ground on like what's happening in your neighborhood. So feel free to follow us on social media and also sign up to our newsletter. We also have, sometimes spotlights on different organizations and the work that they're doing. But yeah.
Awesome. What kind of advice would you have for students or young professionals who are also interested in going the urban planning route and are hoping to get more interested in like planning for equity and that kind of thing?
As I mentioned, when I graduated undergrad, I left with the sociology and Chicano studies degree. And I did higher education for about 4 years. So it was quite a while, and I really enjoyed that field, but it was also something that I felt like wasn't exactly what I wanted to do for a long period of time. And so when I was trying to figure out how to make a move to something that focused more on the environment, um, I started volunteering a lot, and doing work with environmental justice organizations. Um, and I think that kind of emphasized or helped me understand that this is the area that I wanted to get into. So I would I would highly encourage you to get involved with organizations like our own, although there is so many different organizations in Los Angeles County that you can do that. But just kind of get your feet wet that way, doing some like just getting involved in your community with this kind of work. I think for me, when I started working at New Yorkers for Parks, and I realized the power in the people, and the power in ensuring that communities get funding and resources they need. That was really powerful, and it helped me understand that the field I wanted to go into was urban planning. So I think if there's an interest there, there's definitely opportunities to get involved with, whether it's an internship or a volunteer position. I would encourage you to kind of look into that beforehand, because between the time that I graduated undergrad, which was in 2011, and then I returned back to school for my graduate degree, which was in 2016 or 2017. That was a long time in between where, I wasn't necessarily doing specific urban planning work, but a lot of the work that I was doing was kind of planning related.
And so on that idea of trying to get involved, maybe in an internship or something, are there opportunities for students to try and do something like that with Pacoima Beautiful remotely right now?
So we have a lot of opportunities during the summer. That's when we have, a lot of kind of our door-to-door knocking, that kind of outreach. Next year, I will say that through the grant that I'm working on, the TCC, the Transformative Climate Communities Grant, we are working with Grid Alternatives. And part of what we're doing is we have a workforce development plan to hire on folks to get involved by kind of developing them and their skills in solar panels. And so there will be job opportunities in the future with our partner organization called Grid Alternatives, probably late next year. So there is work that's going to be done in Pacoima in the coming years, but there's, like I said, a lot of our volunteer opportunities are during the summer. So if you want to keep us in mind, or shoot me an email next year during the summer or at the beginning of the year, I can definitely keep that in mind if you're interested in this field. I think you're on mute, Chloe.
You are correct. I'm so sorry. Okay, I think that's all we have for questions as of right now. But I just wanted to say thank you so much again, Dora. It was a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to hear about all of the amazing work that you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing. And before we end the meeting, I do just want to let everyone know that we also have 2 other speakers this week. We have Danielle Hogue tomorrow. She is a second-year PhD student at UCLA who is doing research on environmental justice and the intersection with technology. She's also super cool. Please come check her out. And then we also have the Energy Coalition talking about their work and some of the new work that they're starting to do to focus on environmental justice on Thursday. So yeah, thanks everyone. Super appreciate you having you all attend today. Yeah. And
Thank you, everyone.
thanks, Dora. We'll send out information about Pacoima Beautiful social media and all that fun stuff. So look out.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. Oh, it'll be available offline like by the end of the week. All the presentations are recorded. Sorry, got a question about that in the chat, but they'll all be posted by the end of the week with captioning and everything. All right, thanks everyone.
Take care.
Take care.